Hello everybody and welcome to Ty and Sky's Health Pub. We are joined here today by Faye at the Department of Health to discuss antimicrobial resistance. And she is perfect to speak to this topic because she has a very long title that is as follows. It is the Healthcare Associated Infection and Antibiotic Stewardship Program Coordinator. Thank you. I got it all. The first try. So we have a wonderful person who has a great informed opinion on this topic. We are going to discuss antimicrobial resistance. So I think we might as well just dive into it. So tell us a little bit about what is antimicrobial resistance and why is it going to take over the world?
Well, what actually happens is we have good bacteria in our guts, in our body, and when given antibiotics, it attacks the bad bacteria, the infection we're trying to fight, as well as the good bacteria. And so when the good bacteria is destroyed by the antibiotics, it allows the bad bacteria to grow and create resistance to the antibiotics, which then take over. And so it is creating the superbugs, as we like to call them in healthcare, which are bacteria that are resistant to most of the antibiotics we have available to treat infections. And so if they're resistant, you can't treat those bacteria, those infections. And so
let's talk about who's on our lineup list of criminals. Who are we looking at for being our biggest public enemy number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as far as bacteria that are guilty of antimicrobial resistance, of becoming resistant to our antibiotics?
The list is getting longer and longer constantly. Key ones that I deal with because they're associated with healthcare treatments would be like your carbapenem resistant bacteria. Of course, we've all heard of MRSA. That's becoming resistant.
And what is MRSA?
MRSA is a methicillin Staph aureus resistant bacteria.
Okay.
And then there's the vancomycin resistant bacteria, as well as salmonella is actually becoming resistant to antibiotics, TB, gonorrhea. So the list is just getting longer and longer, and it's due to overuse of the antibiotics we have. And so that's why we talk about antibiotic stewardship, being good stewards of what we have left to fight these infections.
For sure.
So inside our body, we kind of take it like, because the first thing I'm like, oh, so there's a war going on between good bacteria and bad bacteria, right?
Yeah,
so we got
like
this fight
visions,
going on,
yeah.
right? Like, so they're in like this either like grudge wrestling match with one another, and we just like, so say it's a boxing match and like it's a glove, and we decided to wire the glove would be the equivalent of like, that's cheating, but we want them to win the fight because winning the fight's more important than fighting fair in this case. So, so are we kind of just like, throwing in or if this was wrestling, am I just like throwing in the chair for like, the good bacteria to try to win? And then like I guess, can you kind of help describe like the process of like, I guess in layman's terms, like how does this resistance form from us like first taking any sort of medication?
Well, actually the resistance, number one, comes from us being given antibiotics when we don't need it, or more so us pressuring our healthcare providers to give us antibiotics when we truly don't need them, when we're going in for viruses such as your colds or your sinuses or a sore throat. We go in and we pressure them saying, we came to the ER or came to the clinic and now you're going to charge us and you didn't do anything for us. So using that guilt complex and kind of demanding that we get an antibiotic. So we're taking antibiotics when we really don't need to, which increases the resistance of these bacteria. And then taking them incorrectly. I'm sure you might have a friend, or hopefully you never did it yourself, but you took your antibiotics till you felt better, and then, well, I'm feeling good, I don't need to finish them, and you save them for the next time, and you kind of self-treat yourself, where, 5 months later, you're feeling kind of achy, you've got a little sore throat, and I have these pills that they gave me last time, and
It should work this
yeah.
time.
So we take them again, or we share them with a friend because, I had that and I have these pills left over. So it's misuse of antibiotics all around.
Well, and there's a lot in there, and I guess I want to dig into kind of one thing that you mentioned. So there are certain things where antibiotics don't work. Obviously, we know that they don't work for viruses. So how do I, if I go into my healthcare provider, know if what I have can be cured with an antibiotic or not?
Well, you yourself don't actually know,
Okay.
and the provider would need to run tests to check if it's a bacteria. Usually there's blood work, so that it'll show in your blood counts whether it's a bacteria or a virus. But a lot of times we try and treat the symptoms first. Viruses usually last 5 to 7 days, so it's not going to be a 24-hour cure-all. This didn't work, I need antibiotics. That's usually our philosophy. We're a society that wants quick response. We want it now. And antibiotics don't work that way, even if they are for an infection. But just taking care of the symptoms that are associated with you not feeling well and trying to do symptom relief with over-the-counter products or soothing baths or salt gargles for sore throats, things like that. And if they're not getting worse, it's more than likely a virus. If they do continue to get worse, yes, you need to seek your provider for medical care. Even asking your provider if you need the antibiotic or if you can wait to see if it gets better in a few days.
Okay. So it's less a situation like, I have diarrhea, thus I need an antibiotic, or I have a cough, so I don't need an antibiotic. So there are not, I guess, certain symptoms that are like, this is specifically caused by bacteria necessarily that I would know versus this is not caused by bacteria typically.
Right. I mean, there
Okay.
is no black and white because some infections do mimic viruses.
Okay.
But it's treating those symptoms to see if you can alleviate the symptoms without them getting worse.
And why does this happen? So you mentioned that we kind of take these antibiotics. They kill off maybe both good and bad bacteria in our bodies, the ones that they're maybe targeting, and then also kind of some collateral damage. How does that lead to those bad ones becoming resistant to me taking that? Like, why can't I just use the same antibiotic in the future and have that bacteria die off the same way it did the first time I take this antibiotic, or that times maybe 100 or 1,000 over a whole population? Like, why do these bacteria, why do they change? What's changing?
Well, the bacteria what we call the bad bacteria that are causing the infection or the virus, they are treated with the antibiotic. And it's like their own immune system, just like our immune system. They start to build up a resistance to these antibiotics. And so the more you take antibiotics, the more resistance they will have to that antibiotic. And so you have different levels of antibiotics, which we call the big guns or the broad spectrum antibiotics. And those kill a bigger variety. But once we build up a resistance to those broad spectrums, there's really nothing left on the market to treat.
Do you think
And
that... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, they can actually share their resistance with other bacteria.
Oh, really?
They're a friendly little group of organisms.
And that's not good news for us, I guess.
No.
And I guess going back to this whole, a lot of it's from, a person's decision, going back to, saying like, do you think it's a cultural thing that when we go to a hospital, where, if we go to the emergency room or something like that, and we're expecting, like, I guess in U.S. culture, like, we want fast, quick results. We want to, like, feel like we accomplished something going somewhere. Like, I know that, like, if I've ever gone to the hospital and I got just a checkup and I didn't get any medication back, I've always been like, why did I go? Or, because a lot of people, like, a lot of more old school people would be like, like, you don't need to go to the hospital until it's, like, past the point, or like it's like already, like some people would say, oh, it's always good to go check it out, but in certain situations, like if you do, you just kind of want medication back. Do you think that kind of cultural aspect has like a huge impact on people's use of antibiotics?
I do. It's kind of like the peer pressure that we talk to our younger kids about, not giving in to peer pressure. We pressure our providers, and they have the knowledge, but you want your patients to be satisfied as well. And people get really angry if they're spending the money to go to a clinic visit or an ER visit and be told that you can do home type remedies. It's just a virus, or buy something over the counter. And so we push for that, do something for us. The human factor of quick satisfaction, we want immediate relief, and we're not patient people anymore. We're a society looking for immediate satisfaction, and it all plays a role in our healthcare as well as anything else in our lives.
Because I know I would be upset if I went to the hospital and I found out oh man, I could have looked this up on WebMD or something like that, right? Or if I was trying to Google my symptoms and and then I thought, oh man, my problem's actually worse than I can. So I guess it's more of the issue of diagnosis of something. If the issue is that people are going to be doing this at the hospital, I guess what kind of things is this a problem of hospitals in particular that they need to address, or do you think that this is more of does change for this kind of issue come from the population itself or behaviors of people?
It comes from both. I mean, providers are human beings as well, and so it's just about doing more education and the patients being satisfied with education, going there, finding out that it's truly not an infection. But, sometimes you do want to just make sure it's nothing more serious, and you do need to seek medical advice to find out what it is. But then being satisfied with the diagnosis and the symptoms that we take care of versus demanding, so to speak, that you be given the cure-all medication, and just accepting the education, being receptive to the education, and then our healthcare providers doing more education so everybody understands that antibiotics don't work on everything. They don't work on viruses, and by giving antibiotics for viruses, we're actually hurting ourselves by taking those, by letting our system become resistant to antibiotics that we never needed in the first place.
Well, and I think, like we've spoken about, and I think even in other shows, we kind of find ourselves at this point in time where we feel like all the main problems, especially maybe when it comes to health, we have the technology.
We can rebuild.
We can rebuild. We don't need to suffer with this cold for 5 days, or this sore throat for 3 days. We need to be at work tomorrow. We need to be on top of the game tomorrow. And I think we even see that a little bit in commercials too. I know for certain cold and flu, and those are more symptom treating than they are. The instant relief, so you can get back to your life, that sort of thing. So we have this view that we can't even be knocked out for a day by being sick, that there should be a fix right now. So I think it's important to discuss this cultural piece, because I feel like that we're trying to talk about throwing this education out there, but really it's hard because we have to kind of change the way we think about illness in a slight way. That we maybe as humans don't have all the answers to that quick remedy for everything.
Correct.
So you're telling me I have to wait it out? Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
We all have to toughen up and wait out that 5 to 7 day virus.
And I think that it goes back to the whole thing. It's like paying money to find that out, and it's just really?
And that hurts.
And
I understand that. Yeah. But even the knowledge, like we mentioned, it's that diagnosis piece, and maybe having some sort of accomplishment in feeling that I at least know what's going on, and I know that I don't need those antibiotics.
Right.
And here are some things I could have done at home. Because you brought about I could have just typed my symptoms into WebMD. Yeah. But if you type your symptoms into WebMD, you have cancer every single time.
That's true.
And I can verify that. but maybe just knowing that what you have is a sore throat, and it's tied to maybe a viral illness, after going into the provider, and your provider can be like, I recommend a salt gargle, or I recommend for your sore body, maybe take some ibuprofen here and there, and maybe put a warm blanket on the area or something like that. Like whatever your provider offers for that certain thing, for your body aches, your throat ache, your cough, maybe even just having that knowledge that something was learned, instead of taking a medication to solve every issue. I guess. This maybe kind of
And sometimes you can be immunized, like influenza. It's a virus, but get your flu vaccine.
Yeah.
It helps.
Yeah. So I think a lot of times too, with the way things have been done, we're so used to this reaction, maybe, of I'm sick, I can take this pill and I can get better.
And do you think that like instant response, because like, you know, usually we're like, okay, if we have A problem, we use B solution, you know, like if I'm sick, I'm going to take medication. Do you think that like this issue of resistance forming is also tied in any way to like, I guess first of all, before that, would it be connected to drug abuse possibly? Like, or classifying as what is drug abuse? Because like, even though like the definition of drug abuse is very broad, or I mean, well, it's kind of, well, I guess like, I don't know, I consider it kind of broad because I think that you could really much abuse even like prescription drugs, because people do abuse prescription drugs. Do you see that like that as a potential issue of also being tied to this topic as well? Because like, you know, say if I'm like taking too much medication, like more than what my doctor recommends for something, then is it just going to increase this process of micro resistance forming?
Definitely. We don't call it drug abuse, but actually if we're taking antibiotics, because of course, truly there are some illnesses where it is a bacteria that needs to be treated by an antibiotic. But like I said earlier, if we aren't taking our antibiotics as the provider prescribes to us and we're doing our own doctoring with the prescription they give us, like, you know, if it's a twice a day antibiotic and we skip some doses, or we stop them too early because we're feeling better, we save them, we start them again when we feel like, oh, maybe I wasn't over it, or we treat somebody else and share it with our friends or our family members, that's truly exactly like you said. It's an abuse of the antibiotic, and that, you know, goes back to antibiotic stewards. We need to be good stewards of the antibiotics we have, which means using them properly.
How many times have you heard the phrase, just one more won't hurt? Because you know, I imagine that like a lot of the times with like certain medications, I don't know if it's, and I'm probably guilty of this too, but like if I'm going to take something for like a headache, I don't actually take that much medication because I like to try to ride out a lot of things, mostly as best as I can, or a good night's rest, or, you know, whatever, some homemade remedies. But I know some people that are like, you know, recommended, it's like, okay, the danger zone is here, the recommended's here, and, you know, maybe if I just leaned a little bit more, like one more pill can't hurt, right?
Maybe if I took 3 ibuprofen versus 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, like, is that type of behavior dangerous for this situation, or is it so, like, I mean, I guess, does this have to be a repeated offense for someone to do, or if they did that, say, one time, would there be like issues going forward with them?
Well, any medication you take has side effects, and there are dosage ranges, whether it's a prescribed medication or your over-the-counter medication. And there's been numerous studies done so that they can tell you that prescribed dose range. So yes, if it's telling you to take 1 to 2 capsules for a headache and you decide, well, I've got a really bad headache, I'm going to take 3 and 4, you know, will something happen that first time? We don't know. Everybody's body reacts different, but there truly is a reason for that dosing prescription, and we all need to follow that.
And even like you mentioned, even looking at that from the other end of the spectrum, the dosing recommendation for how long you should take an antibiotic, similarly with stopping early once you feel better. The reason, I guess, that as we're learning behind that is so that over time, humanity doesn't develop these bugs that are resistant, or these bacteria that are resistant to the antibiotics we have. And I guess that brings me to kind of a follow-up question. Sometimes you kind of encounter this terminology of we're going to enter a post-antibiotic era. So I guess my question for you is, will there always be bigger guns that we can go to, or is that a real danger for us?
Well, that is what we're scared of, because the companies that are producing antibiotics, they aren't producing them like they used to many years ago. They're very expensive to produce. They entail a lot of research, and financially, balancing the books wise, if you think about it, an antibiotic, they're getting bigger gunned antibiotics. So you're not taking them that long. You know, they're 5-7 days. Whereas you're taking a blood pressure pill, a cholesterol pill, that's a pill for life. So it's a better investment for the companies to produce these other medications than the antibiotics, which are very expensive to produce because of all the research entailed. And they're not getting their money returned because they aren't taken for lifelong. So it is truly a worrisome problem that we're not going to have antibiotics that are going to take care of these so-called superbugs that are becoming resistant to the antibiotics we have. So thus, again, that's why we're pushing the fact to be good stewards of our antibiotics. CDC has a campaign called Right Dose, Right Drug, Right Duration, which really focuses on the antibiotic be prescribed at the curative dose for the right time, not giving it longer, not taking, prescribing it 10 days when it could be used for 7 days or 5 days. And so a lot of education is going out with the antibiotics to all providers as well.
Okay. See, and that's really good to hear because, trying to get this focus around like how imminent is this threat of this forming. So I guess in terms of time, of course, the answer, I'm not going to be a fool and ask can we wait? Can we put it off, right? Can we do we really have to fix the problem now, or is this something that we can start addressing it later? Can we procrastinate on this issue, But more so that, it's better just to start early, even though it might not seem like that's that bad because we've heard a couple of stories about this already, but I know that it's just some people don't know if it's just people being afraid too early, or if it's just that the buzz around it
cry
is
wolf.
just too early. That it's too early, that it's just because some people would argue that the idea is that there's so much going on that's making people to be afraid. There's some interest to with drug companies too. There's definitely conflicts of interest there. But what's right, what's wrong, But definitely. So I myself am more leaning on the side that it's an issue for sure. I wouldn't be one of those people it's not an issue, because it's just the thought of that happening is kind of scary. Eventually it's you can't take anything.
Well, and I think kind of you mentioned as well, we are already seeing kind of some of these bacteria that are resistant to even the bigger guns that we have
Right.
as far as antibiotics.
CDC is actually stating that antimicrobial resistance is one of the leading public health issues in our country right now that we're facing.
Oh, wow.
And so I guess with this being quickly becoming one of the leading issues in public health, what kind of stuff I guess because as it gets more awareness in the public, I guess this might be a too soon question, I guess, but what can the average person do in terms of trying to help out this situation? Or is it too much for one person to do? Is it more of a systematic issue, or is there something, because a lot of people, when they hear about a particular problem, they say, oh well, I can do this and I can help my local community deal with this, or I can help my local hospitals, or I can help regulate, and that starting at the smaller end stuff will help affect larger scale change. But is that true in this situation?
Well, yes, and as we mentioned previously, everybody can work on it. We can all be good stewards. So again, not pressuring somebody to prescribe antibiotics for you is key. And so being okay with that when they're telling you it's a virus and these are the symptom relief methods, over the counter or home remedy type things that we can do to alleviate the symptoms to help you make you feel better, but not pushing for that antibiotic. And then, like we said, if you do get an antibiotic, because it is a bacterial infection, to truly take those antibiotics as prescribed until they're gone, and not sharing them, not adjusting your dose or your duration yourself. And then key to any spreading of any bacteria is, of course, hand hygiene. Whether you're washing your hands with soap and water or using your hand sanitizer, hand hygiene is the number one prevention of spreading any. So if you are sick, whether it's a virus or a bacteria, not spreading it to others by doing good hand washing and hand hygiene with the sanitizer is key to spreading a lot of the viruses and bacteria that we do have. And even if you end up in the hospital or you're at the clinic or the ER, it's okay to ask them, did you wash your hands or will you wash your hands? Because we can spread organisms in the healthcare setting as well just by not doing good hand hygiene.
And I guess, along those lines. So where do we catch superbugs? Cool.
Unfortunately, not only do you catch them in healthcare or from someone else, but these bugs have been known to live on environments for months. They're actually very hardy. They're very resistant to cleaning products as well. And so, you go to your supermarkets or your department stores and you see the hand wipes now that, many years ago you didn't. Now it's a common occurrence to see hand wipes there to wipe off your carts. So those surfaces that we're all touching, they can spread germs. And number one good place to harbor organisms to spread germs is our lovely cell phones, our computers. We're constantly touching them. So remember to do some disinfecting of those as well.
And have we gotten to the point of no return when it comes to superbugs or antibiotic resistance?
I don't believe, in my opinion, that we're at that point of no return, but we all need to start being aware of it and working together and being better stewards of what we do have, that we have to treat the organisms that we have out there.
So any of my friends that happen to have, hand sanitizer or carry it around with them, should I be taking them out for a meal or something to thank them for being more mindful, or can I do my part to if I notice someone's office desk doesn't have hand sanitizer, how offended does someone get if I just walk up and just hand them bottles it's for you, it's for your health.
There you go. It's a new concept. Instead of sharing those antibiotics, share the hand sanitizer.
If we're going to be sharing antibiotics, we might as well share that too, right?
Yeah, instead of spreading the germs, spread the message. Everybody needs to have clean hands.
Yeah. And that would be a good first step, because I know a lot of stuff especially in food care, it's very a hot topic where it's you better wash your hands. And I know anyone prepping my food, I'm making sure I'm checking that all the time, because it's if they don't have a sign up in their restroom or anything that says employees must wash their hands or anything, even though I don't know how effective those necessarily are, because I mean signs, there's stop signs, people will run a stop sign, but I think in this situation it's how not just individuals carry themselves with regards to this, but also different companies and different work settings that set the example for people to follow. So if it suddenly becomes a work enforced kind of thing, I think people are more mindful to try to bring it back home as well.
Correct. And if we think about it, the best place for bacteria to enter our bodies, unless we have open cuts, is through our facial area where we have our mouth, our nose, our eyes. So washing your hands before you're touching your mouth, your nose, and especially before you're eating, that also helps prevent organisms from entering your body.
Perfect.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So we have a segment of the show that we like to do, and it involves us taking to the internet to answer questions that you guys have posed on Yahoo Answers. So we'd like to hit you with a few of these questions from the internet community. And I have them right here on our magical internet device. So, question number 1. Get it pulled up here. Okay, so we have a list of a few. And some of these are doozies. So, question number 1 that we want to know is, can green tea fight superbacteria?
Well, actually, a university in Egypt did a study on it, and they had good results showing that when antibiotics were taken with green tea, it helped to decrease the resistance to those antibiotics. So, there's studies out there.
We'll have to take a look at that one. That's the first time I heard of that. I'm not one that's going to
say, oh, that's crazy, because there are studies out there.
I'm glad I had some green tea this morning. That's for sure. That definitely helps elevate my mood a little bit. And I guess that here's so for the next one is this one's kind of interesting. But are hospitals safe considering superbugs?
Well, it's true you can get superbugs from healthcare hospitals, but they are safe. Like I said, it's all about keeping your hands washed and your providers doing good hand hygiene, being aware of your treatment, even your visitors' family coming in, making sure they're washing their hands and trying to keep those germs from sharing from one room to the next, one person to the next. So yes, I do believe our healthcare systems are still safe.
Gotcha. So we'll be sure if we're visiting family in the hospital, bring like a fanny pack of like all sorts of good like cleaning stuff just to
There you
make sure
go.
we're all prepared before.
Well,
we...
most healthcare facilities now have you heard of the term foam in, foam out?
Yes.
Okay. Most of them have hand sanitizer available right at the doorway of the rooms. And so it's not just for your healthcare providers, it's for family visitors as well. Even if you're a patient, foam in and foam out of your room, keeping those bugs at bay.
I like that phrasing: foam in, foam out.
Yeah. And what here is a particularly good one. What type of technology do the Russians utilize to create these superbugs?
Well, we're not giving Russia credit for that.
Okay.
All us humans played a part in it by, like we've talked about before, not using our antibiotics correctly. But they could be coming up with something a little bit more sketchy.
All
That's
right.
great. Okay. This one would be should be fun. I heard that Bibles by hospital beds help spread superbugs that kill patients. Is this true? Hotel room Bibles? Question mark.
Well, there's always money out there for studies, and studies have been done on that. But Bibles, books, magazines, again, because our hands are a cesspool of organisms, if you wanted to culture somebody's hands, you'd find all kinds of different bacteria on our hands growing every day, whether we're in the hospital or not. And so those are all modes of transmission. So it always goes back to that hand washing.
Okay.
Surprisingly, a good question. Like,
Yeah.
I never thought about, like, even though it was worded kind of funny, I always thought it was like, Bibles in hotel rooms. Like, just imagine how many people have at all have touched it.
Yeah.
And how often that might get clean. I don't know. When's the last time you cleaned? Like, if you have a Bible, did you clean it?
I don't clean my books.
Yeah, you don't clean your books because I don't know. Like, I'll dust them off, but that's about it, right?
Clean your Bibles.
You could be the next one on Shark Tank, the Bible cleaning system.
Bible clean. Yep.
There we go. We have a patent on that already.
And for that reason, I'm out.
I'm done with this podcast. I got $1 million idea. This is my last time here. See you guys. I'll be living in Beverly Hills the next time you see me. The Bible washer. Here we go. This is this one has a story. Okay, so my mom had this itch in her throat, so she started coughing, then it started to hurt a lot. Since yesterday she's been coughing, and now she has a fever. Today during noon she started to have a runny nose. Help! I heard that a symptom of superbug is the same as flu symptoms. Does my mom have a superbug?
You can't diagnose it just by the symptoms. So again, as we talked earlier, those sound like viral cold type symptoms, just guessing off the top of your head. So treating those symptoms, taking something to keep that fever down, gargling or cough lozenges, throat lozenges, maybe some over-the-counter to suppress the cough if it's keeping her up at night. Trying those things. If they do get worse, of course, you need to go to your healthcare provider, but that still's not going to ensure that, if I'm going to the doctor, it's a superbug, they better give me an antibiotic.
Yeah.
But you always want to be safer than sorry. So if after a couple days symptoms continue to get worse, you do want to check it out and see what you need.
It sounds like somebody should have cleaned their Bible. I don't know, because I'm curious of what some of the answers were online from folks.
Yeah.
Just on Yahoo, because the answers are great too. Because people will send are you serious for asking that? But I was really surprised with how good, because most of the time Yahoo answers some of the questions are just really you're really surprised at them. But some of these are
Yeah.
Spot
on. But I guess one kind of final question for you. So superbugs have taken over the world. We were past the point of no resistance, and they've actually turned people into zombies. So zombie apocalypse is out. We have to come up with an action plan. And we were talking a little bit earlier before the show started that the CDC has an action plan, but we don't care about the CDC's action plan. We want to know about yours. So zombies are out here in Bismarck. What do you do?
Well, make sure you have water. Take some of your over-the-counter medications for your relief symptoms.
Yes.
And if you have blood pressure problems or any prescription medications for other health symptoms, make sure you take those with. Take some clothing changes, a flashlight, tools. But my number one thing would be something to do hand washing with, because those hand washing techniques are going to help you beat those zombies.
Yes, and they are, superbugs would still be an issue in the post-apocalyptic zombie era. People are still getting sick from MRSA.
You might have to avoid cows up here too, because there's like a lot of cows in North Dakota. So like,
Talking about zombie cows?
Zombie cows.
Oh, zombie cows.
Just imagine
it to a new level.
Cows. Yeah, because then you're like, what if you're like you're farming and you're just like, no, I can't deal with these zombie cows anymore. And then you got to be careful
because superbugs have invaded the agricultural business too.
Right.
They could be those superbug zombie combos.
Oh my gosh,
jeez, that would truly bring about the end.
You could make a movie out of this stuff.
Yeah.
You could have just like one of the characters be like, I was on my farm, and then the world collapsed, and then it was just like zombie cows everywhere, but in terms of I guess like for action plans too though, like would you not trust anyone into like your, say if you had like a fortified house or something, mm-hmm. would you let us in first of all if we washed our hands?
Yeah,
and
could we
survive? Could we live? We don't want to be zombies.
I don't know, but
he'll wash your Bible.
I'm not a big zombie movie fan, but I did watch Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island with my kids all the time. And, even Scrappy turned into a zombie and turned against Scooby. So I think I'd be a little leery of you two.
Oh, man. Yeah, we'd have to do like the whole Scrappy, Shaggy, and Scooby thing.
Right.
Okay. So we're left out to fend for ourselves. Okay.
All right. So knowing that we're left out, what are you gonna do, Skylar?
Oh man, I don't know. I feel like I just start first I'd probably modify some super soakers with some I don't know, hand sanitizer and just see what I could do there and just be like, no, you're not coming in here, unless if I know someone, it's if I do a handshake with someone, you got trusted handshake, it's just nothing but hand sanitizer on my hand. It's just nothing but people have bandoliers full of stuff on or pouches. It's gonna be nothing but hand sanitizer and cleaning wipes and stuff. And
okay. So Sky would have all the hand sanitizer this podcast group would need. If that was the case, I would probably go to the nearest sporting utility store, load up on some blunt weapons, because everybody thinks you go for the guns right away, but once you run out of ammunition, those are as good as this mason jar for killing zombies.
Yeah.
They're not going to do a whole lot, so you need blunt and sharp weapons to fight them at kind of a person-to-person basis.
What if they're so immune that you can't get rid of them the traditional way because of this it's a super bug that's infected these zombies? So all of a sudden they're
cutting off the heads doesn't.
Yeah, no, it's just straight up super zombies.
Then I think we'd have to go to Alaska and steer clear of the moose. But
I think us good stewards of our antibiotics would survive.
They wouldn't even have the problem in the first place.
We'd have the powerhouse.
But yes.
Keep one with you at all times, like wherever you go. Zombie survival groups, just have your steward with you, and it's like
You got your so we'll have to find that in The Walking Dead, I guess. Figure out who the antibiotic steward is.
there's got to be someone.
It's got to be
like that.
Michonne.
Yeah, yeah.
But yes, thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Ty and Sky's Health Pub. Thank you, Faye, for
Yeah,
joining
thank you
us.
so
Welcome.
much.
Thanks for having me.
It was a great discussion of zombies, drunken moose, and antibiotic resistance, all in one. 3 for the price of 1. So thank you guys for tuning in. Leave your comments below, subscribe, like, all that stuff. Get us questions that you would like us to pass on to Faye, and we can get those answered for you. And we'll catch you on the flip side.
Have a good one.